there's certainly some challenges out there. The protocol is the protocol, however, and we'll see. One thing we have on our side at this point is some time. We've got some time on our side. I think the other thing is, our approach at the Bills, and I'll speak on just the Bills, and our approach is that we're gonna do our best to find a way, to find a solution and to make sure we do things the right way. So, all those things I think go into it. Certainly the protocols, to Coach Harbaugh's point, there are a lot of layers on those protocols. That said, again, we do have time on our side, and our team here is working, long hours to try and make sure that we can meet all those protocols and still function at a high level once training camp begins. But again, the one thing we do have on our side right now, at least, is some time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, how are you doing today?
Good, Marcel. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Just with the conclusion of the virtual off season, curious on your thoughts about how everything went. I mean, all things considered, it's kind of an accomplishment having to gather so many people virtually at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's been, to me, it's a reflection on that we're capable of a lot more sometimes than we think we're capable of, right? It's a great example of that. And to sit here now, if you would have asked me, would we be able to get this done back 3-4 months ago, I guess 4 or 5 months ago, to execute what we've been able to execute, and at the level that we've been able to execute it at, I would have said that's going to be a very heavy lift, and it has been. That said, it's been, to me, just incredible to watch our team come together, from not just our players being one of them, but the staff, the support that we get from our IT department. Everyone in our building has had to do things just like you have to make what used to be easy become reality now. And so I think that's been really cool to watch the human spirit at work, not only in our building, but also in our community as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. Great to see you, and thank you once again for doing this for us. So you've said many times that comfort is not a word in your vocabulary, and I'm guessing it isn't there now when it comes to all of this, the off season, this most unusual of off seasons. In terms of what likely couldn't get done, I mean, and I guess I speak more specifically about that hands-on work with your quarterback, with your offense, with your passing game. And I know you've referenced this before, but what's the level of sort of the concern of, you have that list that you keep of things you want to accomplish, things you haven't gotten done, whatever. As you look at that list, where does it stand for you? The concerns of, okay, we did the best we could with virtual, but these things are missing, or these are the things that I really, know that we couldn't cover.
Right, Vic. I think, well, I'll just add that I think you look mighty comfortable as you talk about being uncomfortable. You look mighty comfortable in that chair. Is that a rocking chair you got there?
Well, it's too nice to be inside, Coach. I mean,
make it look hard at least, Vic, right?
Later.
No, I appreciate your question. Yeah, listen, there's still a gap that we're not able to replace at this point. So, you take reps, and there's 500 plus reps that we're not able to replace for new players, for existing players, and building some of the chemistry and the continuity that we're going to need. I think you also go into it knowing that we're all the teams are on the same level playing field with that. No one's been able to get together, obviously in and around facilities. So I think, we're all starting around the same place, and that as we head into training camp, I'm referring to. So Is that a concern of mine? Yes. I think the better question is, and the better thing that we have to have is, what is our plan and what is our solution come training camp to try and close that gap? And so, that's some of the, or a large part of the communication that we're having here is, what can we do in training camp? What do we need to do to find those solutions that we may not have had these same challenges in prior years? So that's where, you have a strong staff and the value of communication comes in. And then, hey, when we start, it's all hands on deck. Just like I mentioned before, and I'm confident in our building that's the approach that I'm already seeing. And that's the approach that we're going to have to take in order for us to have a successful season.
Thank you.
Survey.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for doing this once again. Just curious, little piggybacking off that, how drastic of a change do you think things will be come training camp? I know you're a creature of habits, so just formats or pace. Obviously, players are not over at St. John Fisher College in a way like you prefer. How drastic do you anticipate your plan and model for this training camp being different than the years past?
Right. We're going to try and keep it as normal as possible. It's certainly not normal times right now, but we're going to do our best to keep it as normal as possible, so that our players can come into our building and achieve the best version of themselves, because that's really what we're here to do, is develop players. And the only way we feel that we can develop players, not the only way, but the best way in these times, is to give them the best feeling of normalcy, while, albeit abiding by the protocols that was asked about earlier, to make sure that we're doing our best, or as best as we can, to keep everyone as safe and as healthy as possible. So that's why, again, we have a team, and we trust one another. Everyone has their own job, and everyone has their own responsibility to do as it relates to our team. And so our players need to be able to come into our building and trust that we are out in front as much as humanly possible at this point in time, or come training camp.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Maddie. No problem.
With training camp, or the virtual off season, wrapping up before training camp, and I know, of course, there was a lot of lost snaps just having to do everything virtually, but how do you walk away from this virtual off season feeling confident in the on-field work that your team will do once training camp begins?
Well, we do have a lot of work to do, Maddie. Let's be very upfront about that. I'm confident. I believe I'm always confident in our players, right? Whether it's this year or prior years. I'm also confident in the way that they're wired, in terms of the DNA, the intangibles that they possess. And that's some of what we have to lean on during what we've had to lean on during the last couple of months, and then also over the off season as we close up shop for the off season program here. So, that said, I know that, normally in normal years, what happens for coaches, and to some extent what happens for players, is you close up shop for the off season program, and things are they go a little dormant, and you kind of can get under the radar a little bit for the period of give or take a month. That said, this year I expect will be different because of the continuing flow of information from the league and from obviously our leadership, that we will have to continue to communicate over the course of the next handful of weeks here as we go forward, in making sure that our training camp is ready to go. We're ready to meet all the protocols, and that we're ready to, I guess, just give our players the best chance to come into a normal situation, as I alluded to earlier.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Good morning, Sean. How you doing?
I don't recognize. I don't know who that is. Is that?
It's
It looks
still
like
it's
St.
still
Nick.
me.
Is that the
It's
North
still me.
Pole?
No,
Holy
no.
smokes, man!
I've got
Christmas in July almost. Christmas in June.
actually Tim Graham actually I guess said something about me on the radio this morning, but which I won't repeat. Um, sorry. I have two questions. One is, I mean, we're looking at college teams that are already experiencing players that are testing positive for COVID even before they get on the field. And then you've got like the situation with Ezekiel Elliott. How confident are you, even with given, knowing that you're going to take every possible precaution, how confident are you in believing there won't be any setback that you'll encounter with positive testing once you get to training camp?
Yeah, John, I think what we have to take the mindset of is really more so, yes, confident, but at the same time, that we have plans, we have contingency plans in place, just based on how things have been going in our country. That there's and as you mentioned those examples, there's a probably pretty good chance this could come up here in Buffalo. And the better question is, how are we going to respond? And what is our plan? And so that's really a lot of the conversations are around, again, as we look at our total and thorough plan, not just on the field or off the field, but now asking those questions. Hey, the what ifs. What if this happens? And you just kind of fill in the blank for what that is. We've got to make sure we're ready to go. And so obviously that's makes you communicate. It makes you over communicate. And so it's definitely unique in terms of preparing, but we've got smart people in this building. And so we've all got to, again, as I mentioned earlier, not to sound redundant, but we've all got to do our job and be ready to go. And that's why these next coming weeks may not be as normal as they typically are year to year. And so we've got to be making sure we're staying up on all the information and do the best that we can.
I know you'd be, you're fully prepared for any situation given how you conducted yourself there. On the other subject is, I'd be remiss not to ask, because the Bills actually came up in yesterday's press conference with the Pegulas in regards to financials. And is there any concern that, given the fact that the Sabres aren't going to be making money or generating money for the course of this year, calendar year at least, should there be any disruption to the NFL season? Is there any concern that there might be some pushback on cost-cutting measures from the Pegulas? Should something come up to affect the NFL season as far as attendance or games?
So if I understand your question, you're saying, am I concerned, John, about cost cutting?
Potential cost-cutting measures, given the fact that that's what's happened at the Sabres, where there's been an emphasis placed on a leaner operation, given the uncertain circumstances facing that franchise. Yeah,
Terry and Kim have to me modeled that they are committed to winning, and I can tell you, I can't comment on what goes on at the Sabres. I can comment on what goes on here and what I've seen at the Bills. And that is, I see every day, not only from what they communicate to me and Brandon, but also what they do and their investment here in the Bills, that they are committed to winning. And so that's really all I can go off of, is my experience and what they've communicated to me and what I've seen firsthand.
Thanks very much, Sean. Have a good break.
You too, John. Good to see you.
Hey, Sean, thanks again for doing this. I was curious how much you monitor the other player-driven workouts around the league. I know a lot of teams are doing it. The Falcons did multiple weeks, I guess, just for maybe comparative purposes, or even, I know the Jets had a big workout the last weekend or so, and they are your next opponent. Do you watch that at all to see if you can grab anything from those workouts?
Well, Thad, I take the approach that I'm aware. I want to make sure I'm aware of that. Always aware of our landscape in terms of our opponents and respecting what they do. All that being said, I've learned if you don't focus on what's right in front of you, and that being our team, my team in this case, with Brandon and myself at the top of it, from a leadership standpoint, that'll get you beat before anything else gets you beat. And so we've got to make sure that our home is ready to go, and that we're doing the best that we can to get ourselves ready to go. And to your point, it's players are getting together as we see it with different teams, different locations, and I think you'll continue to see that from time to time, maybe through the time between now and leading up to training camp. And we just hope and pray everyone stays safe through it.
And Sean, just to follow up quick, you talked about the restrictions for camp. Is there anything specific that you can talk about how the Bills, or how you guys have gotten ready for camp? In other words, one of the things I thought of is, have you figured out how you're going to fit 91 bodies into that locker room with 6 feet of social distancing?
Right. And then you guys on top of that, so we'll have
We
to see.
appreciate it.
That was my biggest concern yesterday, is we took about 2 or 3 hours and walked through what we feel like would be the best plan for training camp with our ops staff as well. And so that in and of itself was new. Usually when we go to St. John Fisher, we know what to expect at this point. And so the plans, there's a lot of work being put into the prep side of this, and making sure, again, the protocol, and then just the overall experience for our players in order to get done their jobs at a high level, and our jobs as coaches at a high level. So, so I mean, just overall, it's just awareness and making sure that we're doing right by everyone involved here.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for taking a few minutes today. I wanted to know, I guess, what went into your decision-making process, and how to handle everything that went on with Jake Fromm after those texts were released, and what ultimately led you to the decision to keep him on the roster and go about it, move forward that way.
Yeah, Matt, good to see you as well. Jake's situation is certainly one that we've taken very seriously. And I think you've sensed that from the start. Jake did a very good job of communicating to the team on more than one occasion. And so a big piece of that was the communication piece. And that has to continue. And that's the important part of it here. We know that the challenge is we're not together, and he's not together with his teammates. That would certainly help. And so I think, right now it's, where do we go from here? And Jake has to continue to earn it. And I think Coach Dable did a great job of explaining that in the last couple of weeks when he spoke to you guys about that. He's got to earn it. And listen, there's going to be players that are going to be wanting to see how Jake acts and reacts in certain situations, not just on the field, but off the field. And that's, again, that's putting a team together, bringing a team together the right way. And so they're going to have a chance potentially to evaluate Jake, not only on the field, as I said, but off the field. And that'll be an important piece. And Jake understands that, and he understands that he has to earn it. And that's, as you guys know, earning it is nothing new from, to you guys. We talk a lot about that. It's in our building. It's written on the wall. So this is a case of that. He's going to have to earn it. And so, Jake, as I said before, I thought did a good job addressing his team. And so we'll see how things unfold between now and camp.
The conversations you guys have had, in the couple of weeks since we last spoke, with everything going on, have you guys had any sort of talks about how you'll handle if players want to protest and kneel or demonstrate in any way, I guess, when the season rolls around?
Yeah, those conversations are ongoing. I would just tell you, if you look back at how we've handled prior experiences, how we've handled it in the last couple of months here, that we are always going to support our players. We're always going to respect their position on things. And then we're also going to do our part in listening and trying to educate ourselves and following it up with love. That's been, again, that's nothing new from me to you guys that I'm communicating and answering your question, Matt. I think that's really, to me, the right way to go about things. And that's what we're all about. no hidden agendas. We're trying to do things the right way, and it starts with respect and ends with love.
Thanks, John. Have a good summer.
You too, Matt.
Hey, Sean, thanks so much for taking the time today. Good to see you. Staying on the quarterbacks, I think one of the big question marks on this roster right now, after all the work that you guys did this offseason, is that backup quarterback position. I think that, maybe people that aren't as tuned into the team maybe have some questions with Matt, but I know that you and the staff are very confident in him. So where do you kind of see things going? And also at backup quarterback, and now with the emergence of Davis Webb this summer, and people understanding what he brings to the room, how confident are you in all three of those guys battling it out?
Yeah, Matt, good to see you as well. Is that a horns up hat you're wearing right there, man? There you
Always.
go. There you go. Good stuff. Very confident. I'm very confident in Matt, for a lot of reasons. All that being said, competition is good to have. Competition at that position, competition across our roster. And I think Brandon and his staff have done a good job of providing that. And so we'll just see how it plays out, right? Obviously, you look at Josh and the growth that Josh, and the time that he's put in, the growth that he's shown to this point, and what we expect, again, from him moving forward. And then you've got to have depth in this league. You guys know that. Depth is important at every position, in this case, the quarterback position in particular. So, I think the reality of this year in particular is what happens if said player comes down with the virus, right? And so even more important that you have depth and quality depth. In this case, as you mentioned, at the quarterback position and any position for that matter. So it is something that we take seriously, making sure that our depth is what we need it to be. And then as coaches, we also have to make sure that we're developing those players as well, giving them just as much time, because that's a challenge as a coach, right? Just kind of giving you guys an inside look at how do we split our time up? How many reps do we give the backups to get them not only to show what they've got, but also to get them ready to play at a high level. So it's a constant field day to day with rep and the plan for the reps.
And just a quick follow, we saw Davis kind of leading the workouts down in Florida. What kind of impression has he made on you, and what has he brought to the room? Because I don't think a lot of people are very familiar, with his, what he's brought in a lot of ways.
Right. Really appreciate Davis. I think one day, and he and I have spoken about this, that he will be a coach when he decides that it's time to end his playing days, or when he sees those come to an end. But when you go through as a coach and you see players, certain guys that you can kind of earmark, hey, if he wanted to, you'd make a pretty good coach one day. And so, but talking about him as a player, really appreciate the way he's handled things. Listen, this is a guy that has been basically told he hasn't been good enough in a couple different spots. But as I've said before, Buffalo, we want to make this place a place where people can become the best version that they've ever been of themselves. And we're able to do that. And we've done that to this point because of our culture, because of the people that we have in our building and the resources. And one of the other things I love about Davis is incredibly organized, true pro. As you mentioned, he organized some of that workout down there. And so I have nothing but positive things to say about the young man.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure, Matt.
Hey, Sean, Mike Catalan in Rochester. Good to see you. You talked about adjusting to the current rules, but as we've seen in other businesses, once things get going, the rules can change pretty quickly. Do you have I'm not going to say a protocol coach, but do you have somebody specifically you go to? Because once you get the players in the building, if things are changing, you may need to adapt, not necessarily to the current rules, but as the rules change. Is there something you're doing in that form, especially once you get the guys in the building?
Well, believe me, I'm sure, as thorough as we are, Mike, I'm sure there's things between now and training camp that we haven't thought of yet that we're going to think of. And so So yes, I mean, we have people that are going to be tied directly to the protocol, having a protocol coach. I don't want to get into all the specifics on it, but yes, a good point. And you do need constant reminders. I mean, you guys have all been out a little bit, like I have, just a little bit, and you were so used to what was the norm, and you end up standing next to someone and you're going, whoa, hey, I forgot, right? So yeah, that's going to happen on the field, and we're going to have to make sure that we are continually policing that and remaining disciplined.
And to follow up on that, is the league doing that too? Are they policing the teams? Is that something they've told you they're going to do, or are they kind of leaving that to the teams to follow the rules?
Well, to this point, I mean, the league always polices. There's a, they have their spot checkers and whatnot, but we have to do our own. And I would hope, regardless of the COVID situation or not, that we're always going to do our own. But I think, again, it goes back to, it's a key word here, discipline. You go back and you say, hey, early on, we were very disciplined, right? In our house, are we staying disciplined? It's easy to lose that element as you go through day after day. It's easy to start that way, right? But who can do it? Who can remain disciplined? No different than workouts, right? Why do New Year's resolutions fail, right? Because it's easy to start, but who can see it through? And that takes discipline, and that's sometimes what helps separate some individuals and some teams from others.
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, good to see you again. Hope all is well. There was a report a few weeks ago that the league is looking into the possibility of shortening the preseason to kind of give teams a little bit of a chance to ease back into things and also to potentially limit the risk. From a coach's standpoint, what's your viewpoint on if that route did happen?
Yeah, whatever the league decides, we'll roll with, Matt. So I've just been in this league long enough to know that you've got to be adaptable, and adaptive teams and individuals win. And so we'll be adaptable to whatever they roll out, because there's no change in it. In particular, after that, I've long learned being around it. So, we'll be ready to go with whatever they feel is the right plan. Obviously, in this case, they would be, the reasoning for it would be to keep everyone as safe and healthy as possible. So whatever they decide, we'll support, and we'll be ready to go.
With so many, quick follow-up if you don't mind, with so many people, returning on your team, could that potentially be an advantage for you guys because you have so many players? I think I saw the number, 88% of the starters coming back and things like that.
Yeah, continuity is good to have. It's a good ingredient. It's a good start. The thing we have to be aware of is games aren't won this time of year. Games aren't going to be won just because of continuity. We've got to make sure that we take that continuity piece and build on it. And that's what we've got to do when we can come back together. I think the way our players have handled and staff have handled the off season, as you guys have heard me say before, finding a way. Our players have found a way. It appears, at least. Listen, I'm talking to them the same way I'm talking to you right now. So I'm trying to get the feel for where they are. And so there's a gap. So when we come back, we've got some continuity, yes, but that's not going to win us games. That in and of itself, that's a start. We've got a lot of work to do, though, to get ourselves ready to go. And anybody who says otherwise is only kidding themselves at this point.
Thanks, Sean. Have a good summer.
You too, Matt. You guys look awfully relaxed, man. Some good environments back there. Got the picket fence. Mike's got the picket fence behind him with the lattice work. I like that. Probably up in Rochester in the nice, cool weather up there.
We'll get you on HGTV sometime, Coach. Thanks for some time as always. I know you're juggling a lot of stuff this time of the year. Josh Allen last week when we had him, he had some very encouraging words for what he thinks Dawson Knox can be going forward. So my question to you, what do you believe would be realistic progress for Dawson going into year 2 here? Of course, taking into consideration the limitations of this offseason.
Yeah, Dawson's had a good offseason to this point. we do expect a year of growth, a year of development. Obviously, going from his first year to his second year, Chris, and really encouraged by the way that he's approached things. Really encouraged by the way that he's worked on his body this off season, from what it appears. And I think a big piece of it is going to be his availability and his consistency. And so sometimes what you see the first year is a lack of, at times, consistency. And I think Dawson's aware of that. And he's committed to developing to the point where that becomes a strength of his, and we're here to help him with it. So I think he's off to a good start in the early part of his second season. And as Josh mentioned, he's very confident in Dawson, which is an important piece. The good quarterback, tight end combinations I've been around, Chad Lewis in Philadelphia with Donovan McNabb, Greg Olson in Carolina with Cam Newton. That's a big piece of a quarterback's success, is where he has that security blanket, in this case, the tight end position.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Okay, little technical glitch there. Thank you, Coach. Looking ahead to training camp, on the defensive line, you've got 9 guys with NFL game experience. I mean, hundreds of starts, really, plus AJ. Just how would you characterize that unit? And is it the most depth you've ever had heading into a camp? And was that you had good depth last year? Did you make a conscious effort to target even more veteran depth?
Well, we believe in winning up front. That's where the game starts. It's one up front, and so O-line and D-line. We've spent a lot of time talking about trying to find players that can help us. And in some ways, really, to your point, we did something similar on the offensive line, bringing in Darrell Williams, Evan Bain, so guys that have experience. We want to be able to give ourselves options on both fronts, and have the best 4 on the D line and have the best 5, but with quality backups as well. And as it relates to the defensive line, being able to continually bring fastballs, play at a high level, a high intensity level up front. And so with that in mind, that's what you saw bringing in Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson, Mario Addison, to name a few on the defensive line, as I already mentioned, some on the offensive line. So that should be good competition for us in training camp, just within that position, within those 2 positions, and again, when they work against each other. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Hey, Sean, Jay here. Hope you're doing well. You've lost Eric Wood, Kyle Williams, and now Lorenzo Alexander in consecutive off seasons. That's a lot of leadership for any locker room to lose. Understanding that you won't be able to see it on the field here until training camp, but have you seen anyone, maybe aside from Josh Allen, given the nature of his position, sort of develop as a leader, maybe even somebody that maybe surprised you a little bit going through here this spring?
Are you saying referencing the offensive side or the whole team, Jay?
The whole team, just leadership and who sort of steps into that role, particularly now with Lorenzo departing. Developing that next wave of leadership.
Yeah, no, that's key. That's key to our success. Player-driven leadership, as you've heard me talk about before. For me to sit up there and bang the podium is with not enough player leadership is not going to get us where we need to be. And the players are aware of that. We've talked about that. So the player-driven leadership and that ownership, probably more than anything, is key to our success and where we're going to go as a team. And so here we've Kyle, Eric Wood, Lorenzo, we miss those guys, and you can't replace them. So the next person has to step up, and that means young guys have to develop, and they've got to grow and understand, hey, in particular in year 3, year 4, year 5, you're going to be expected to help lead our football team. And so to name a few, Mario Addison has come in as a new player and really demonstrated good quality leadership. You're seeing some other players, John Feliciano, who was here with us, really step up his leadership, just to name 2 on both of the lines in this case. So really great to see. Jordan Poore, I think, has had a good off season, really helped in that aspect as well. And Reed Ferguson, a guy that a position as a long snapper. You say, Coach, hey, Sean, what really? Yeah. I mean, it's, I think that's cool to see where guys have it and they're able then they want to work on developing themselves as leaders as well. And so that's been fun and exciting to watch some of these guys step up their leadership.
And then, Sean, I wanted to ask you about, I know you can't comment on the inner workings of the Sabres, of course, but yesterday, was a tough day for your PSE family, which you're a part of. Just what was your general reaction to what went on with the hockey team?
Yeah, we're all human and it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate. I have a relationship with Jason. Hate to see things like that happen. I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for Terry and Kim, and I think more than anything, just want to show my support for Ralph. As you know, I have an existing relationship with Ralph as well, and have a lot of respect for him. So, as much as I'm focused over here, I still support wholeheartedly what goes on over there and root for the Sabres, and I want to see them do well. And so just more than anything, like I said, just empathizing with the situation and also trying to support Ralph through this as well.
Appreciate it, Sean. Have a good summer.
Dude, thanks, Jay.
Hey, Sean, Heather Prusak here from WIVB here in Buffalo. Thanks for doing this. Hope you're staying safe and healthy. Kind of going off of Jay's question about that player-driven leadership after all of the guys you lost. You always talk about that mental toughness, and with the COVID restrictions going into training camp, what do you have to do to keep these guys, mentally on task? Because obviously there's a human element to it. Just what do you have to do there, and who are you leaning on as far as like the mental aspect of all of this goes?
Yeah, who's helping me, Heather, with my mental? That's what I want to know.
Don't you have to get a dog? Get a dog or something.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and it's a key part of our environment, right? Every year, it's a key part. This year in particular, because we balance now the COVID situation with trying to win games. And so the mental health piece of this is important. There's also a mental performance piece of it as well, baked into all this. So again, I'm a big believer in how we approach things helps determine where we go with it. And so we're trying to create an environment here for us at training camp that will help us in those areas. It'll be a first. So, but I'm confident in our team, Heather. As you've seen us do work before, I'm confident that we will have a well thought out plan to give us the best chance to accomplish those and meet those challenges that you mentioned, because they are real.
And a quick follow-up, talking to Heath Farwell last week or whenever it was, he said Lorenzo's been sitting in on some of the Zoom meetings and things like that. How involved has he been this offseason from your perspective, and do you expect that to maybe continue into training camp and the regular season at all?
Well, as you know, Heather, whether it's and Jay, I think mentioned, it was Eric Wood, Kyle, Lorenzo. These guys are Buffalo Bills, and they'll be Buffalo Bills for life, right? And so just kind of not keeping them involved would not, I mean, there's a lot of wisdom baked into those guys and things that they can share with our players on the field in this case, and then off the field as well. So, hey, how do you adjust to life in the NFL? How did you adjust to being a new dad in the NFL? That wisdom is, we wouldn't be, being responsible leaders, Brandon and myself, if we did not involve them from time to time in what we do and so on and so forth. So that's been great to see. And I really appreciate that Lorenzo or Kyle and Eric and many others have wanted to come back and help. That's the cool piece of this, is that tradition of the Buffalo Bills, what it means to wear the red, white, and blue of the Buffalo Bills, what it means to retire as a Buffalo Bill. I think that's so cool and special that we have, and unique to the Bills. I think it's been great.
Thanks, Coach. Have a good summer.
You too, Heather. Thanks.
Coach, good morning. Mookie Hawkins, Waffle Sports 1080. How you doing?
Great, Mookie. Good to see you.
Great, great. Now, finally, you guys got the opportunity to get back into the facility. So, how excited were you about that? And you, as a coach, we know that you're very as far as you're instructing, and you're very hands-on with the players. We appreciate that. So, what would be your expectations from the players, when training camp begins?
Well, I don't think my expectations are going to be any different than any other year. Number one is we really focus internally on ourselves. We focus internally on working, earning the right. Listen, I'm right in that same boat as our players. I expect the same from myself, to come in and do my job at a high level. I'll expect the same from them, to earn everything we get, and that's how this league works. That's how life works, and so my expectations will not change. And we've got a lot of work to do, and anyone, as I mentioned earlier, that thinks that we don't is sorely mistaken. So I'm excited about working with the players. I can't wait to see them because I care for them, and I can't wait to, I had a chance to see a couple of them downstairs earlier that are in for rehab purposes, but I can't wait to see all of them back here healthy, hopefully, and where we get a chance to work together here and get back to doing things at a high standard that we're comfortable with and used to at the Buffalo Bills.
Thank you, Coach. Enjoy your summer.
Thank you, Mookie.
Hey, Sean, Tim Graham here. The old man in the sea covered the precautions regarding the COVID earlier in the conversation. So I wanted to ask, you're going to be getting to
his name. Is that what you want to go by now, John? Not okay. So so old man in the sea. That's okay.
Kevin Kearns is doing us all a favor and keeping him muted. You're going to be together for the first time since January, whenever camp opens. What precautions are you taking from a strength and conditioning standpoint? Now, no matter how diligent these guys have been working on their own, do you have to do a slow ramping up of things? I think a lot of people are going to assume, hey, let's hit the ground running, and maybe your players even mentally are going to want to really get after it. How much do you have to hold things back in the early days of camp?
Yeah, that's tremendous awareness, Tim, on your part. That's, again, a large part of our conversations over the last probably 2 weeks have been how we want training camp to look, not just operationally, but now, to your question, how do we ramp them up? Let's not forget, usually by now they're 500 plus reps in, and they've been around our care for the offseason program. And then they go away for 4 or 5 weeks and then they're back. And even with that, we still get concerned. And so even with that, there's a gradual ramp up. This year in particular, we've gone to great lengths to map out what I feel like is a good plan. And that plan is going to continue to evolve over the next several weeks, Tim. I depend heavily on our sports science department, but I obviously have the final say. And so, what I've learned through it is the best approach for us is, hey, everyone, it's a collaborative effort. Everyone's involved. Let's take what we know now, bake it into the plan, and then make sure that we use our gut instinct at the end of the day as we move from one day to the next through the training camp period. So yeah, we're taking great caution, and a lot of prep work is going into right now that rep plan.
I have another question, but a quick follow-up on that. Where do you think you are? Where are you in terms of the data that you've been able to accumulate, whether it be through devices, or I don't know if you're able to get them on these guys to check heart rates and exercise, whatever your guys are doing with your technology, versus kind of needing to wait and see until they report and then figuring it out? I mean, like you say, you're going to do it over the next few weeks. How much are you going to know when they arrive versus how much you're still going to need to gather?
Well, part of them getting in here, them being in here helps us, right? So them being where they are, it's hard to get a good feel. Like I said, I see them every day or every other day or what have you, 4 days a week like this, just like you're seeing me and I'm seeing you. That's the real part about it. So just like you can't tell if what type of shape I'm in, I really can't tell exactly what type of shape they're in, right? So the only way we'll know is once we can get them here, and then we can start to work together to make sure we get them ready to go. And it won't be, at least for us, it won't be we're going to take them from here to here. That'd be irresponsible. We got to build them up to make them robust. And so, and that's what we, between myself, sports science, Eric Siano, strength and conditioning coach, our head trainer, Nate Bresky, that's an all hands on deck type approach and conversation.
And then my other question was, we were talking about what ifs very early in this. And I know that it's kind of a dark what if, but given that your team is in what seems to be a very good position in building it at the right time, what if this season gets shortened or canceled?
Like, what's your question in terms of what do I do?
How? Yeah, I mean, do you? I don't know what you do. I'll leave it open ended, but I mean, it seems to be like, wouldn't that be the kick in the butt or the kick in the other side if you have everything the way you want it right now, and this could potentially prevent you from seeing it out?
Yeah, I'm a positive guy, Tim, by nature. I really am, and the way things, all signs right now are pointing to us playing and having a full season, and so that's the information I'm going off of right now. And that said, if things happen, then we'll adjust. I'm, like I told you before, I'm a positive guy, and things have come up before in your life, in my life, and adversity, and that's what we do. That's the human spirit in us, and we adjust and we move on and we grow and learn from it. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for right now, man, we're getting ready for a season, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Sean. Have a good summer.
You too, Tim. Thanks.
Sean, thanks for doing this. Tim just completely bummed me out, so I'm gonna try to fight through that. When we talked to Josh last week, he said, among many things, I'm not going to become captain check down. And I guess speaking to the way he does want to, show off the arm or push the ball down the field, but also try to balance it. How do you as a coach, how does Brian as a coach get him to sort of find that right balance as to whether to check down or whether to push it down the field?
Yeah, I think, Mike, it comes from a variety of areas, really. And number one is experience. Continuity plays a part in that, where he knows who to trust, when to trust them based on the defensive look. That's all part of it, just playing the game, right? Whether you're 10 years old, or in this case, what Josh is and is going in his third year here, he's got to play the game and get more and more experience and see the value of taking what the defense gives you. And if they're going to give you the check down and they're going to take away everything deep, then the check down is there, you take it. If they're taking away the shallow stuff and we can get over the top, then we'll go there. And so I think you've got to be flexible and adaptable, as I said before. And Josh has to be as well. He's got to know, and he will. He's got to know where his options are and how quickly he needs to go there, because there's meat on the bone. There's yards to be gained with those checkdowns. Certainly, you don't want to be, to his point, captain checkdown. I understand that, and so that's also where you can open up the defense a little bit with Diggs and with Smoke and Cole and whatnot. So, I think having different options at Josh's fingertips will be good, because sometimes that does open up the check down for you if you're working the perimeter just as well. So I think the balance is important.
And to follow that up, you mentioned the 500 plus reps that have been lost because of the virtual off season and the need for Josh and the experience to learn. I guess close eyes on him when he comes back to see what it looks like and see how far he's been able to progress on his own, if you will.
Yeah, always. That's, it's a quarterback driven league, and you got to have a guy that, is in tip top shape and ready to go and has and is developing. And that's what I experienced last year by watching Josh in the early days when he came back. Brandon and I both, you saw how he had worked on his game, and we don't expect this year to be any different. He went home with a a menu of things he wanted to improve on, and we collectively agreed that he needed to improve on, just like every other player on our roster. And so we'll do that with every player. When they come back, sit them down, meet with them on, hey, these were some things that we wanted to address in the off season. Where are we on those areas? And then let's see how it looks on the field. And that's also, that's why, in particular, why the early days of camp are so exciting, is to see where players are and how they've grown and developed.
Thanks, Sean. Have a good summer.
Yeah, you too, Mike. Thanks.
All right, Sean, Marcel, can you hear me?
Marcel, I got you. Yep.
All right, cool. Just going for clarification from a previous answer. Have your players reached out to you and let you know that they will be or are planning to protest and kneel during the national anthem this season?
No, I've had no players reach out to me and let me know at this point, Marcel, of their intentions to kneel or protest at this point. I'm not saying that won't happen. I'm just saying to your question, at this point, that has not happened. But I want to reiterate my support of our players. I think that's important right now. We've got a lot of time between now and that first game. And so I think the best thing we can do is make sure that they know that we support them and certainly respect their position on things.
And would that support in if your players did come out this season and they did want to kneel during the national anthem, is that something you can see yourself joining them in doing? I know Bill O'Brien came out and said the other day that he wanted to, along with his players. Is that something that you can see yourself doing as well?
Yeah, I'm going to support my players. And again, we've got a long time between now and that first game. But I want you to know that I'm going to support my players.